Good morning. Welcome to RedisDays 2022, live from San Francisco. My name is Mike Anand, and I'm the CMO at Redis. Last week, we kicked off our RedisDays 3-city tour in London and announced the general availability of RedisJSON 2.0, a real-time document store with native indexing, querying, and full-text search capabilities, highlighting the real-world financial services use cases with the industry luminary David Losheen and Redis customer Nationwide Building Society. We had a lot of fun, including a fun cameo appearance from our first real Model 3 winner. If you missed it, all of last week's sessions are available for you on demand on the RedisDays platform. Developers are what makes Redis special. True to Silicon Valley roots, today is going to be 100% dedicated to you, Redis developers. We're committed to open source roots and mission to help you build real-time apps. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome the driving force behind Redis innovation and products for today's keynote, our co-founder and CTO, Iftach Schulman. Iftach, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mike, and hello, Redis friend. And thank to everyone for joining us today for our Redis Day broadcast from San Francisco. In this session, I'm excited to preview the upcoming Redis 7 release, and I have a big announcement to make. A new experience and product that will allow developers to build and deploy real-time applications with real-time data faster and simpler than ever before. And I would like to use this moment to add a personal wish. I wish that by next year, at this time, we will all be meeting in person, enjoying the views, the food, and the atmosphere of the city that shares so many of the same values as Redis. As you probably know, Redis is celebrating its 13th birthday this year. When Jewish boys and girls reach the age of 13 or 12 for a girl, they go through a coming-of-age ritual called a bar or a bat mitzvah. This ceremony marks the time when a boy or a girl reaches adulthood. So what does it mean for Redis to become an adult? First, Redis is everywhere, used by almost any application developer or company around the world. Be it top 10, Fortune 500, Global 8000, SMBs, hypergrowth, and emerging startups. And if you look at almost any metrics, such as the number of Docker container launches, most used databases in the cloud, and most loved database by developer, Redis is ranked number 1. Second, Redis is no longer just a nice-to-have caching system that helps to speed up application from time to time. Redis is now a critical component for any application. And if you look at our production metrics, over 91% of our cloud databases are launched with high availability provisioning, which means at least one replica and a built-in auto failover mechanism. Over 87% of our cloud databases are configured with data persistence or backup. And over 66% of our customers are using Redis for beyond cache use cases. And third, managing an open source project is not an easy thing to do, especially in the database space where every bug can lead to a data loss or even data breaches and can dramatically affect millions of users around the world. There are tons of open source projects out there, but only a few are really successful. It is one thing to say, I am an open source project, ride on the hype and the buzz, but not really allow anyone outside your company to contribute code. It's a completely different thing to manage a critical open source project with a large number of contributors in a consistent manner throughout many, many years. And our numbers don't lie. We almost doubled the number of active contributors in the last 4 years. And today there are over 650 active contributors for Redis. We more than doubled the number of pull requests, or PRs, per release. Over 1,100 PRs in Redis 7. And lastly, Just in the last 12 months, we cut the mid time for closing PR by 70% to only 1 day. And let me remind everyone, how do we do it? 2 years ago, when Salvatore Sanfilippo, the creator of Redis, stepped down, he asked us to build a more scalable, open source leadership model that on one end maintained the legacy of the project, meaning an efficient and highly optimized code base combined with an elegant design that is easy to use, and on the other end includes the leading contributors from the community. I would like to take a moment and to thank our Redis core team for their wonderful execution in the past 2 years. Oran, Yossi, Itamar, Medlin, and Zazu, your thorough work, humble culture, and your willingness to help, educate, and mentor others to drive the growth and the success of the Redis project is truly appreciated. The most exciting news of Redis 7 is Redis functions. That being said, the concept of programmability in Redis is not new and was introduced in version 2.6 when we launched Lua scripting. Programmability inside Redis allows developers to execute code closer to data and avoid the overhead associated with bringing data closer to code. Redis functions make it easier and simpler to write code within Redis, as every function is accessible through API by all your Redis client or application instances. Furthermore, Redis treats functions like it treats data and ensure your function will sustain failure or restart events by supporting it with existing replication and data persistence mechanism. Since launch, Lua scripting has gained a lot of developer momentum, which we believe will only be bigger with functions. Redis 7 also introduced the concept of Sharded Pub sub for better scaling pub sub command in a cluster environment. We also improved security with ACL v2, better usability with introspective ability, and a lot of internal optimizations that helps run Redis in a robust and safer manner. To learn more, I would like to invite Yossi Gottlieb to share more details about Redis 7.
Thank you, Iftach. Redis 7 comes in a year after 6.2 and is a big release with many improvements and fixes. In a nutshell, it's a mix of some new features, enhancements to existing features, optimizations, and some core infrastructure improvements. The first release candidate was out on January, and we expect the GA around the April timeframe. Redis functions is the main highlight of the release in terms of user visible features. It is an evolution of Lua scripts, transforming them from essentially a client-side element to a new way of extending Redis itself. This is a really big topic, and I'll leave it to Itamar to demo and describe this in more detail in his session. Access control lists, or ACLs, have been extended with the concept of selectors that can be combined to express richer policies. For example, you can now grant a user with access to one set of commands for one set of keys and another set of commands for a different set of keys. Madeline was the main driving force behind this feature, and she describes it in detail in her own session. Redis cluster gets a new form of sharded pub subcommands that operate on a single shard at a time, and it scales this way much better because it avoids broadcasting messages to all cluster nodes over the cluster bus. We've also extended Redis cluster with an option to advertise host names and not only IP addresses. And this better supports deployment in some scenarios like orchestrated environments or more complex networks. And also it is more TLS friendly because it allows clients to do certificate name matching. As for optimizations, Redis cluster sees up to 20% reduction in memory usage thanks to better mapping of slots to keys in memory. And this is an idea brought up by Jim and implemented by Victor. Redis 7 can also save up to 50% of memory of copy on write memory during child process operations like AOF rewrite or BG save or full syncs, thanks to a mechanism that informs the kernel about memory that is no longer needed and can be reclaimed on the fly. This is also a result of very successful collaboration. Juan promoted this idea, and Shooter IT, who is a long-time Redis contributor and part of the community, came up with the implementation and basically perfected it. He also came up with another great optimization that saves memory by using a single common buffer for both the backlog and replication buffers on the master, instead of maintaining separate buffers for backlog and individual replicas, like previous versions of Redis did. With Redis 7, it is also now possible to control and limit network buffer memory. In the past, network buffers could bloat, and this could result with uncontrolled eviction of volatile keys. And now with Redis 7, it is possible to configure Redis to simply drop clients in this case. Another big improvement involves persistence. Redis 7 uses a new AOF or append-only file mechanism that is based on multiple files instead of a single file. This way we can greatly improve the process of rewrites that no longer needs to buffer everything in memory or perform bulky I operations at the end. And in the past that used to cause painful latency spikes that are now gone. This feature is also a result of intensive collaboration around an implementation that was provided by Chen Yang. The new AOF file format also supports timestamp annotations that can be used to restore the dataset to a specific point in time. As I already mentioned, some of these improvements originate from ideas that were basically floating around and they've only now fully materialized. As Redis continues to mature, we also need to divert some attention to the underlying infrastructure that is not usually visible to users, to make sure that it can continue to scale and we can continue to support Redis in the ecosystem and the different changing use cases in the future. In Redis 7, this involved some major internal reorganization of some of the in-memory data structures. Zip lists, which Redis uses internally for many things, basically to store anything from small hash keys to sets to sorted sets and lists, have now been replaced by list packs that were introduced by Redis 5 and used for streams. List packs offer some advantages, and also as a result, we also get a new RDB10 serialization format. A lot of this important work was done by Sandeep, who is a devoted member of the community. Another big step is around the handling of the command infrastructure. We now have subcommands as a formally defined thing, and they are now basically equivalent to commands, so we can refer to them directly in different contexts like access control lists, see them in slow logs, see them in command stats, etc. Redis 7 also extends the command to provide full introspection of all the available commands, including documentation and metadata about the commands, format specification of the arguments, and the new key specs mechanism that basically tells clients how to recognize arguments that are key names, and this way handle cluster sharding in a much more generic and forward compatible way. There's a lot more to share about Redis 7 beyond the scope of this short overview, and we've made sure to include all this information in the release notes, which is pretty detailed. And we've also created a series of blog posts that accompany the Redis 7 release candidates, so this information is more easily accessible. Before moving back to you, Iftach, I'd like to thank Oran and the other core team members, Itamar, Madeline, and Jarjao, and the growing team of great contributors and the rest of the Redis community for all the hard work and devotion, and for making Redis 7 possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Yossi. And let me thank again the long list of Redis 7 contributors around the world. Without your intensive work, we just couldn't have done it. And to learn more about Redis 7, please join us to a deep dive session by Oran, Itamar, and Madeline immediately after this keynote. Redis 7 is now in its release candidate stage, and if everything goes well, we will go GA by the end of month April. Now let's talk about real-time data. At Redis, we are building real-time data layer because real-time is what consumers and businesses now expect. To build real-time application, you need a database that can process any request with fastest possible response times. Today, we are excited to introduce a new real-time data experience that lets you build real-time application faster and easier than ever before. A real-time database must handle any request, whether a simple object retrieval, a search, or a complex aggregation, in less than a millisecond. This holds no matter the data model, be it key value, document, stream, graph, or time series. Every extra millisecond spent in the database make it more difficult to deliver a true real-time end-user experience. As the research at DB Engine makes clear, key value search, document, graph, and time series are the core component for any modern database. As it turns out, we have spent the past 4 years building several dedicated data engines that extend Redis with these modern data model and data processing capabilities. Implemented as Redis modules, these engines were built from the ground up on the same design principle of the Redis core, with in-memory architecture and efficient code base written in C or Rust, and allow developers to run a wide variety of data workloads at the lowest possible latencies. After listening to our community and customers, we realized that we need to simplify the developer experience of leading Redis modules and the capabilities they provide. We wanted to help developers to be fully productive from the moment they started using Redis. So today, we are thrilled to announce RedisStack. RedisStack consolidates the capabilities of leading Redis modules into a single product. This makes it easier for developers to build modern real-time applications with the speed and the stability of Redis. The first version of RedisStack Server includes search, JSON documents, graph, time series, and probabilistic data structure capabilities, aiming to provide the best possible developer experience. We are also bundling Redis Insight with RedisStack. Redis Insight is a powerful tool for visualizing and optimizing Redis data, making real-time application development easier and more fun than ever before. And finally, we are providing a fully featured RedisStack client SDK. First, by supporting RedisStack in several leading Redis clients, such as Redis for Java, Node-Redis for JavaScript, and RedisPy for Python. And next, by providing a new suite of object mapping libraries for RedisStack. These libraries provide developer-friendly abstractions that get you productive with just a few lines of code. Our new libraries are also make it easier than ever to integrate with major application frameworks, such as Spring, ASP.NET Core, FastAPI, and Express. To show you just how easy it is to start developing with RedisStack, I would like to invite Peter Kaliu, Director of Product for Developers Capability, to give us a sneak peek. Peter, please.
Thank you, Yiftach. I'm very excited today to show you how easy it is to start developing with RedisStack. In this demo, I will showcase you the 3 pillars that build up to RedisStack. I will show you the developer tools, Redis Insight. I will create the RedisStack database on Redis Enterprise Cloud, and I will also show you how to use the object mapping libraries to build an application with RedisStack. You can download RedisStack today on redis.io, but you can also use your favorite package manager such as apt, yum, or brew to install RedisStack. In this demo, I will use brew to install RedisStack. The first thing we have to do is we have to add a RedisStack tab to brew. Now this is finalized, we only have to do brew install redis-stack. This brew package RedisStack installs two components. The first one is RedisStack Server. RedisStack Server is your favorite Redis extended with 5 modules: Redis Search, Redis JSON, Redis Graph, Redis Time Series, and Redis Blue. It also installs Redis Insight. We can now simply start Redis Insight by typing Redis Insight. Once we're in Redis Insight, we have to add a Redis database. I could use the RedisStack server that was installed with Brew, but instead I will show you how to create a RedisStack database in Redis Enterprise Cloud. The first thing I have to do is to log in or sign in into Redis Cloud. Then I can create a new subscription. You can create a free subscription for a 30 megabyte plan in any region that you wish. So we're going to choose EU West 1. We'll give it a name, stack, and we'll go ahead and create the subscription. Once we have our subscription, we can create a new database. We can choose between a RedisStack, a Redis, or a Memcache database. We'll also give this one a name. Now the endpoint is available. We'll go ahead and we'll copy this endpoint and add our database to Redis Insight. Add the Redis database. We paste the connection details here. And then lastly, we also have to copy the password of the default user. We can also go ahead and give this a new name. The database has been added successfully. We can see the 5 modules that build up to RedisStack. Once we connect to the database, we will get into a browser. Redis Insight is designed to help you visualize data that resides within Redis and to help you build and optimize your application with Redis or RedisStack. In the workbench, you can find different guides. There are guides for document, graph, time series, vector similarity search, and probabilistic data searches. There is also a RedisStack tutorial that walks you through all the capabilities. There is a deep dive session later today that you can follow to see all the capabilities that are part of RedisStack. Just to show you how it works, I will give you an example with the document guide. We'll click on Working with JSON. The first thing we'll do is we'll create some documents. These commands will create 4 schools. Now this is done, we can actually check in the browser what the content is of those keys. We'll go into school 1. We will see that the school has a name, a description, school type, etc. I want to continue my guide. I could continue with the CRUD operations, but I'll continue to create an index. I won't dive into the details, what is part of this index, but what you can see here is that, for example, the name is being indexed of the school. Now this index has been created, we can go ahead and we can search the documents. We can do, for example, an exact text search. Here we're doing ft.search schools, which is the name of the index, and I will search for girls. And there we go, we found 2 schools out of the 4 documents that contains girls. The last thing that I want to show you is how easy it is to get started building an application with the object mapping libraries that also build up RedisStack. The only requirement that is part of my project is Redis Own. This is the object mapping library that is part of RedisStack. I just have one file, I'm importing this object mapping library. The first thing that I will do is I will create a class that describes a person. There's a first name and a last name, and notice that we'll also index the last name. The next thing we'll do is we'll create a new person, Antires, who is, by the way, the creator of Redis. His first name is Salvatore and his last name is Sanfilippo. Then we'll go ahead and save Antires into our database. The next part is actually required to create the indices for Redis search. In the last step, we're going to show you that the object was saved by doing a full text search on the last name field. We're going to find the person that contains a last name, Sanfilippo, and we're going to return all the ones that match. So I will go ahead, and there we go. We can find Salvatore back in our database. So just to summarize, in this demo, I installed Redis Stack using Brew. We created a database in Redis Enterprise Cloud, and we connected to it with Redis Insight. To get started, we followed an onboarding guide with for Redis.json, and afterwards we built an application using the object mapping library, part of Redis Stack. This concludes my demo. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Redis Stack is now generally available for Redis 6.2, and we also have a release candidate for Redis 7. As Peter mentioned, we are providing several ways to quickly get started with Redis Stack. You can download Redis Stack directly from redis.io using your favorite package manager, or you can simply launch Redis Stack over Docker container and run it on your laptop or servers. To deploy Redis Stack in the cloud, you can create a free database on Redis Cloud in just 10 seconds, or use one of our fixed plan. We are also providing Redis Stack's capabilities in our Redis Enterprise software for users who run on premises or want to self-manage. All the code-based components of Redis Stack are open and free for everyone to use. But we still want to be very clear about Redis Stack licensing model. We are releasing Redis Stack Server under Redis Source Available License, or RSAL. We are providing Redis Insight under Server-Side Public License, or SSPL. The leading Redis client and object mapping libraries are provided under open source MIT license. We are excited about the endless possibility of real-time applications that Redis Stack will unlock. But let me also just say that Redis Stack is not a replacement for Redis. Redis is a core open source technology. We are going to continue to support its development. You will always have the option to download, build, install, and run Redis by itself. And when you're ready to run on Redis Stack, you can easily migrate your data using Redis replication mechanism or loading your RDB or AOF files. There are much more to learn about Redis Stack, and I encourage you to join the deep dive session after the keynote, delivered by Elena Koloska, Technical Enablement Manager at Redis, who will walk you through all the capabilities that Redis Stack adds on top of Redis. Now, I would like to make one more announcement. With the release of Redis 7 and Redis Stack, we are making a big update to the redis.io website. Our goal is to dramatically improve the usability of the site and the quality of its documentation. We are also updating the site look and feel and unifying the open source Redis, Redis modules, and Redis Stack under the same umbrella. We are committed to continuing to develop Redis as an open source project, supporting one of the largest developer communities on Earth, and cooperating with our growing number of active contributors. We will continue to add in capabilities to Redis Stack to allow developers to quickly and easily develop modern applications for the real-time era that are entirely based on Redis, and then enable DevOps team to easily deploy and run Redis anywhere, cloud, multi-cloud, on-premises, and hybrid. We would love to get your feedback about everything we presented today. Send us a note on the Redis Google group, or join the Redis Discord server and let us know what you think. We hope you are excited, as we are, about the new Redis 7 and the release of Redis Stack. And thank again for joining us today.
Thanks, Iftach and team. Today, you, the developer, have the freedom to leverage and pick modern data models that specifically meet the data needs of the type of applications you're building. This proliferation, however, comes with a price. The assembly work that many of you need to go through every day, putting your tool sets together, takes precious time of research, skill building, experimentation, and maintenance. Redis Stack is all about simplifying that experience, bringing the Redis simplicity and allowing you to build faster and get started anywhere, on your local machines, in a container, or on Redis Cloud. We'll have 2 deep dive sessions later today, fully dedicated to further exploring Redis Stack and the possibilities.